Good evening, everyone. Welcome to meeting 4 of the 2020 Census Ward 8 Redistricting Committee, where our goal here is to collectively and thoughtfully decide on a map for our ANCs by which we will abide and live by, or at least propose to the council of the whole that we live by for the next 10 years. This is our 4th meeting, and as discussed last time, the last 3 meetings that are today, March 2nd, March 16th in 2 weeks, and March 30th in 4 weeks, which will be our final meeting, are about the actual maps themselves and getting as much information, ideas from the community, et cetera, on how we're going to approach those maps. Ultimately, we intend to end up with one final map that we vote on from hopefully no more than 3 in our final meeting. The goal of this meeting is to look at the draft maps that our engagement leads have prepared coming out of the last meeting, and just sort of visualize the ideas on which, from the feedback that we're getting from the community, either via the ANC meetings or via our redistricting inbox, et cetera. And I think that we should be able to wrap up a good number of those ideas into the 3 maps, no more than 3 maps that we can send to the Office of Planning to vet and verify between now and our 5th meeting. The goal there is if the Office of Planning thinks that we have a viable idea, that makes the work on the back end a lot easier, not only for us in meeting 6, but also the council of the whole to just go ahead and ratify the final product, the final deliverable from our committee. That being said, my name is ANC 8803, Commissioner Brian Thompson, and I don't know. Let's how about we do a roll call here? Barbara Jones.
I'm present, Chair.
Carmen McCall.
Present.
Troy Prestwood.
Present.
David Meadows.
Present.
Miss Maggie Edwards.
Present.
Miss Wanda Lockridge.
Present.
Miss Jules Jesse.
Present.
Juan Mason.
Present.
Barbara Clark.
Present.
And Salim Adolfo.
Present.
Do we have, thank you. Do we have any committee members here that whose name I didn't mention? Oh, Miss Sheila Bunn, I see that she is connecting. Miss Sheila Bunn, are you present?
I am present. Sorry.
All right. Anyone else I missed on the committee that I'm just not seeing on my screen?
Angela Crawford.
All right. Welcome, Ms. Crawford. All right. Well, that being said, I think we can move on. You have tonight's agenda on the screen, and I think we can move on to just rehashing what our starting point is coming out of meeting 3. So we'll ask Ms. Carmen McCall to do a reading of her notes and highlights from the last meeting, and then we'll get into a update on a status update, or I guess the general tenor of our email inbox. And then we'll move on to sharing the maps from each of our engagement lead teams for the maps that they came up with since the last meeting. And we'll have a discussion. Like I said, maybe we can get down to 3 maps tonight. or less. So that being said, Ms. McCall, please feel free to proceed. And before we do, actually, I'm sorry. This is for everyone those of us who are attending, not committee members, please feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat so that we can address them as we transition to the various parts of our agenda. I see that we have Angela Copeland just joined us. So we have let's see, there's about 14 of us here this evening that are committee members. So we're at 50% to start the meeting. Let's move forward. Ms. McCall, if you would, please provide a recap of the last meeting, share highlights and thoughts coming out of that
We're
meeting.
also joined by Commissioner Holly Muhammad.
Oh, good evening, Commissioner Muhammad. You don't have to say present. I do see her at the bottom. All right, Ms. McCall, please proceed.
Good evening, everyone. The meeting of the meeting for February 16th notes, the third meeting for February 16th. It opened at 6:09. There were remarks from Councilmember White and Chairman Brian Thompson. Previous deliverables, Carmen McCall. I gave the redistricting email address, but I will give it again. It's redistrict, REDISTRICT, Ward 8 at Ward 8, sorry, ANC at gmail.com. We had a guest speaker, Councilman Alyssa Silberman, and she talked about making sure that we work together. Time was of the essence because of the fact that we'll be having an election in November and we have to do legislation for that to be approved. She wanted everyone, she wanted everyone to become familiar with the various maps and learn how to use the tools. We talked about the name maps, the cluster maps, the niche, and basically timelines, which were very important. Okay. Please bear with me. Okay, we had discussions with the community members, and they were assigned meeting dates. In 8A, Miss Barber said that they probably needed more information for the residents to truly understand, which indicated the maps that we discussed on our last meeting that would be more helpful for the residents. Barbara Jones and Miss Mason will be having their meeting on March the 15th. Monique Diop indicated that business owners as well as residents had questions with regarding redistricting, and they also wanted to see the maps. Mr. Presswood gave a presentation, and he did a PowerPoint presentation. He left contact information. He told them about the timelines. He talked about the tools, and their next meeting is 3/14/2022. Mr. Jared Weiss was on board with I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the niche or the notch. He was in agreement with that.
The notch, that's correct.
Right, and we talked about the address one more time. Okay, there was a resident on the line. Her name was Jackie Carter, and she had indicated that she had some youth who were interested in redistricting, and that they were 17, 18, and 19, and they wanted to know what was the redistricting And they wanted to know, would it push residents out of the city? And if there's anything that I missed, Chairman, or anyone, I would like anyone to feel free to send it to me to the email address.
Carmen, thank you. Thank you for that. And I was, as you were speaking, I was rewriting my notes. And I wanted to ask, this is a message for any and everyone on the committee regarding the maps that we covered in the last meeting, in the variety of maps timeline. Have you all received any feedback, or is anybody missing the maps, or does everyone understand them? Is there any comments 2 weeks out about the maps that we used for our last meeting, as well as any comment about the remaining timeline for our meetings?
Yes, this is Commissioner Salim Rodolfo. Would it be possible to get another look at the maps? I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. The maps were sent to the committee members. We can get you another map. That's not a set of maps. That's not a problem. But is that like, is that an individual request, or are there community members requesting that within your ANC?
I haven't been able to see it and share it with the other commissioners in ANC 8C.
Okay. Ms. Lockridge, can we get the versions of the maps we discussed at the last meeting over to
I'm happy to resend the maps over to you, Ms. Commissioner Adolfo.
right? Any other questions about the timeline? Because this is meeting 4. We have 2 meetings left, and in these 3 meetings, a little bit less than 6 hours of time now. The goal here is to ratify a final map that we're going to submit descriptions to, or we're going to prepare descriptions for, to submit to the DC Council of the Whole. And I see Ms. Lockridge, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have my hand up. I just wanted to ask Commissioner Adolfo, is he receiving any of the emails at all? Or I just want to make sure I have his email address correct. And if any other members are not receiving their emails, if you could just let me know, I will be most appreciative to make sure I can double check your email addresses to make sure you're getting all the correspondence.
I've received the links to the meetings. I received the email with minutes once, and that's all I've received in reference to the meetings.
Okay, thank you.
I can put my email in the chat so you can make sure you have the best email from me.
Okay.
Okay, how about that? Anyone on this call who, and let me be clear, we have not submitted any maps, presented any maps relative to the goal of this committee here. The maps I'm talking about are the maps provided by the Office of Planning that illustrate the neighborhood names, illustrate the census tracts, and I guess the neighborhood clusters. There were 3 maps that had various representations that would aid us in going about the goal of this committee of creating like maps that, maintain community, that, make sense for where the communities that we're drawing boundaries for are coming out of the 2020 census. So that's what we're talking about, maps that are already in existence provided by the Office of Planning to aid in the redistricting effort. Ms. Copeland, I see you have your hand up. Angela Copeland?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. To you, Ms. Wanda, the council member, all of the esteemed members of this committee. I really appreciate all of the effort, all of the time, all of the really, for you, Mr. Brian, all of the really the people who really took the time to look at a map. I will say, I'm not a cartologist, so I appreciate the expertise, the time, just doing it of my neighbors to even participate in this process. I know I'm going on, but I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you first. So I also want to say, not everybody is into this, Mr. Brian. I think you know that. Not everybody is into this process. So I appreciate how, this committee has thought about saying, okay, draw your map, come on, get involved. You can do this too. And so I just want to say, I really just want to say thank you, because it has been the most involved process that I've ever seen, and I won't go into the years, but it's been the most involved process that I've ever seen. But I've also seen, I shouldn't have said it, but I want to say thank you for everything that everybody has done. And I just want to know, what we can do next. I've seen some other, I don't even want to say that. Just thank you. I'm done.
I have a question, Brian. This is Barbara.
All right. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, I went on to the tool. I'm very interested in doing the map and trying to work with it. So it took me a long time to register my name. It took almost 3 hours, okay? And it kicked me back out. And when I tried to, use the tool to use the pencil to what I wanted to do, I had a hard time. I really had a hard time today. I tried to use the map to make suggestions and stuff, and I couldn't even do it.
So 2 things. One, I didn't say thank you, Angela. Thank you for the kind words. And, we are a community and we're going to get this done as best possible. And Barbara, there is an online training. I believe it's recorded, Wanda, or if anyone can correct my memory, there was an online training for the redistricting committee members to learn the mapping tool.
I did.
The Office of Planning.
I
So is that to say that the tool or the training still was not clear and you'd like some additional guidance on the tool itself?
Yes, because I called downtown and they said there was an issue. Because, I went, the training, I looked at the YouTube training. I said, okay, this is easy. So when I went to register my name, it took me almost 3 hours so I can accept my name to get a password just to use the format. And then I finally got into the format. I couldn't even use the tool to make the corrections or even look at it. I had a hard time. So I did talk to Miss Wanda Lockridge to let her know that I'm having issues with the website.
So, Wanda, any comment on that? And the reason I'm asking is, do we have tech support or do we have anything via the Office of Planning for the redistricting tool, if you know?
So yeah, Ms. Barbara Jones just brought that to my attention as we started the meeting today. I'll plan on reaching out to the Office of Planning to see what challenges, if there's a system glitch, and if so, what technical support we can get. I know initially we had support, so I'm sure that we're able to get more, but I will follow up tomorrow with the Office of Planning, and then I will share that information with the committee members and those who may be interested. I will let you know as well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you, Ms. Lockridge. Commissioner Muhammad, I see you have your hand up. Commissioner Muhammad, if you're speaking, I think I hear a voice, but it's very, very faint. I can hear you asking very faintly if we can hear you, and generally the answer is not quite.
I thought we were going to be looking at maps tonight. Are we not going to do that?
Yes, that is part of our agenda for tonight, is to look at the maps that each team of engagement leads has prepared in terms of ideas for our final deliverable. That is correct. And Commissioner White is asking if we could put the map tool link in the chat. Ms. McCall or Ms. Jones, we're all committee members here, so I think we've all touched the map tool and have access to it. If anyone could put that in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Oh, there it goes. All right. Commissioner Muhammad, did we answer your question?
Yes, because I'm concerned about the timeline. I don't think we have enough time.
Okay, I think the answer was yes. So, all right. Any other discussion about the maps or the timeline?
Yes, I said, answer, concerned about the timeline, because I don't see where we have enough time to actually finalize these maps.
Yeah, Commissioner Muhammad, I can hear if anybody can't hear her, she's saying she's concerned about the timelines to finalize the maps. Now, this is it's the timeline we have. We were given a due date, a end date of April 1st for presenting our final product. And within that, we have about 4 weeks or so. Aware that this is a sprint, and for those of us who are already commissioners, it's a lot to do, but we're going to get it done as best as we can. The goal here is to capture via the committee and via the redistricting email inbox, via the engagement leads contact with the ANCs, capture as much feedback as we can to inform our final product. That being said, we have a due date. So the timeline can't really change at this point. But we kind of knew that going in. So let's do our best and try to get through this. If Vice Chair Coates is on, please feel free to speak up. All right. All right. We do have a hand up, Ms. Mason.
Mr. Chairman, so if we had issues with getting into the map, or in my case, one of my partners had some issues we could not get together this week, can we submit our maps to you by email this week?
Sure. The goal is to sort of whittle down the amount of information we have as options. The draft maps that we have, we were expecting a solid 7, but maybe we'll have less than that. And in as much, I would say by Wednesday of next week, I believe that would be the 9th, would like to forward those maps to the Office of Planning for vetting. So yes, if there are any maps that we don't cover tonight, I'm going to go ahead and set a deadline for that content of Wednesday, March 9th. The reason being is because the Office of Planning basically said that if they don't vet our maps, there's no chance that if we submit them, they're going to be at all viable. So we want to get through that check before we start deciding on what we're going to submit as the single final recommendation for a map.
All right, thank you.
And Yeah, that's a question. Well, that's a question we're about to answer. Ms. Lockridge asked who is ready to present maps tonight, and I believe that was the tasking for the last meeting to have done by this meeting for each team of the engagement leads is to prepare a draft map and present it at tonight's meeting. So why don't we just that's next on our agenda. We will come back to Vice Chair Coates after this portion of the meeting. And why don't we just go down our list and see if we can have those maps screen shared. So let me see here. We'll start with 8A. We'll start with 8A. Miss Barber and Miss Crawford. Are you all able to present your maps this evening?
Let me give them access. I actually just gave Angela, because I thought she was first up. So let me. So who's presenting so I can give you screen sharing access?
Ramona or Angela, which of you are presenting your maps for 8A? Or representing the ideas you've received from 8A?
I no longer see Angela Copeland on the line. And I do not see Ramona. So let me see who's next on.
Okay. Moving on to 8B.
Miss Mason and I, this is Barbara. Miss Mason, are you on the line too? We both had problems trying to get into the use the map tool. We both did. But I just want, can I say something how the some of the residents feel about the map?
Sure. We can take that commentary and at least record it for posterity as we move forward in our efforts. Sure.
Well, some of the residents where I live at, especially the seniors, they think that it's kind of pushing them out, the minorities out of the district, and also some of the middle class residents thinking they're pushing out. But I told them it's mandatory. We do this every 10 years, but someone brought it up to me to look at statistics that they did a report is showing that it can hurt us and it can help us. Majority right now is hurting us of redistricting. That's what they was feeling about that.
All right. If you know, can you give a bit more insight to what the term hurt means in this context?
Well, what I did when they mentioned it, I looked online and I looked at NAACP. They had an article about all across the United States where redistricting is happening, especially in the Black neighborhood. The prices of their home goes up, the taxes goes up, the cost of living when you do that. And they are feeling that this is going to happen to them. If you look at the research, which I did, I do research. When people say something, I look at it and I found articles about that, about it can hurt you and it can help you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And to that, I'll just say, let me be clear that our goal here is to draw boundaries. The cultural, socioeconomic impact of those boundaries, aside from not maintaining continuity of neighborhoods and doing our best to not break census tracts, it's beyond the purview, the scope of this committee. And while I understand that there's a correlation between this effort and those outcomes, those larger societal outcomes. Definitely not causation in how we are going about redistricting at the ANC level within Ward 8. And this is, I'm noting that because we've already had our Council of the Whole, our DC Council vote on the ward boundaries, how the city is going to be sectioned up. We're just deciding how Ward 8 is to be subdivided amongst the ANCs, the population representing plus or minus 5% at 2,000 people per SMD. So I definitely understand that, but I want to reiterate that our scope is extremely limited in our effort to redraw the Ward 8 ANC boundaries.
I understand that. I'm just letting you know, hearing what the people were saying.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I made that comment for the live stream, and just so that everyone knows that we we are, well, some of us are your elected officials, but we are not your most senior elected officials, and our purview is extremely limited here in our efforts to provide a recommendation on a Ward 8 ANC map to include SMDs. That being said, is there an 8B map that we're ready to present, share with the committee?
No.
All right. All right. Well, I will say if you have one, or with the feedback you received are able to submit one, please forward it directly to me, or actually to the executive committee. That being myself, Ms. Lockridge, Ms. McCall, Mr. Coates, and the council member. And let's see, Ms. McCall, if you could type our email addresses into the chat, just so folks know how to reach us as an executive group regarding this committee, I'd appreciate it. That being said, let's move on to our 8C engagement leads and their opportunity. Commissioner White, Ms. Joe, please feel free to move forward with presenting your recommendations on a map, a draft map for via the feedback you received that is as engagement leads for ANC 8C.
So we don't have a map for 8C yet, but we will. 8C's meeting is next week, and Commissioner Drope and I will get together and try to work on this. I've tried the tool a couple of weeks ago and failed at it, like some other people, with the technical support. So if we could get some technical help on how to use this tool, that would be greatly appreciated. Because it is quite difficult I'm technologically challenged, so it's really difficult for me. And 8C's meeting is next Wednesday because of our meeting tonight. So we'll be able to hopefully get more feedback for them next Wednesday after we present something.
All right. All right, thank you, Commissioner White. And Ms. McCall just posted our Gmail account for you to submit your maps to ahead of the Wednesday, March 9th date, by which we hope to forward our best candidate maps for Office of Planning vetting. And we'll circle back to the technical support issue here at the end of the meeting. I just want to make sure that if there's more input on that. And for 8C, is there any otherwise feedback that we're getting from our engagement? I mean, engaging the ANCs or as engagement leads on how to prepare these maps?
I don't think we have any more updates from the last time. Commissioner Diop went to the last meeting and was able to meet with the ANC, but just kind of some of the same sentiments. We do realize that 8C is very, it has a lot of business and development coming towards it. So looking at that as an issue too.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right, well, let's give 8D a try. We have, let's see, who do we have here in 8D? We have Miss Bunn, Miss Sheila Bunn, and Miss Diop again. Do we have maps to present for the 8D engagement leads representing the feedback you've received as engagement leads via the ANCs?
So Brian, Monique is not here, but we have been working on our map. So I don't have one to present, but the meetings that we've been to, no feedback or no pushback from residents, more they were thankful for the information being shared. So no one has said one way or the other, or no one has expressed any hard concerns or feelings about the boundaries being redrawn. So what we're looking at is trying to make sure that we don't split any census tracts, but in a couple instances, that may not be unavoidable. But you should have, we're finalizing, so you should have hours within the next day or so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I did not put it on the agenda because in my mind, we addressed it last night via the 8A monthly meeting, but I do have an update for you regarding the Navy Yard notch and how that will affect ANCs or an ANC or SMDs west of the river in Ward 8. So I will get to that in a bit. Can we move on to ANC 8E? Maggie Edwards and Miss Bunn again?
Yes, Maggie's going to present on our behalf.
Yeah,
Right.
so we have a map, and I can go ahead and share it. And while I'm doing so, just at least, if I, Wanda, if I could have the ability to share my screen, that would be.
Yeah, you should have ability.
Wait, now we got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm also thinking, potentially based on feedback, because we do have an ANC 8E meeting coming up on Monday that it could be subject to change, but Brian, if there are any changes, I'll be sure to send an updated one to you by Wednesday. So kind of, if we're all able to see this, the way that I kind of approached this was kind of starting with just the existing 8E lines and kind of working within that as a starting point. So we'll just kind of move through here. All of the SMD numbers are different, and that's just how my mind worked while I was putting it together. But looking at on this map, we've got 8E02 and 8E07. Those are actually unchanged from the current maps that are being used. You'll see that 8E02 is below that 1900 number. And I know Sheila mentioned it relating to 8D, but it is possible. I think, we might need to consider splitting census tracts. I know we don't want to, but to at least make it, make a little bit more, concise sense here. And then 8E03 on this map is the only adjustment from the current SMD is making Alabama Avenue Southeast that southern border instead of dropping down to a census tract below. And then I will admit the 8E01 on this map looks a little wonky, at least from my perspective. And, totally open to, if any folks on the redistricting committee have any thoughts of how we can kind of make that work, also between 8E06 to bring that up into the, plus or minus 5%. And then kind of moving down to the, southern portion of existing 8E, we've got the 8E05, which I will acknowledge is, is slightly over that 2100. So again, I don't know really what we would need to do if it's splitting census tracts to kind of make all that, work and fit. And then I did, in the course of creating this map, 8E currently has 7 SMDs within this, creating a new SMD on here is number 38 because I couldn't figure out how to rename it. And where the 40 is, where it's a little bit lighter blue, less teal color, actually shifting that out of the ANC. And again, it might need some census tract splitting to make it a little bit more, the lines a little bit more nicer. But that's kind of what we have so far. I don't know.
Maggie,
Yeah.
you cut out on the comment about shifting 40 to something.
Oh, yeah, shifting that out of 8E. That was just to kind of see for me, seeing the numbers of how many individuals were being moved out and how it kind of affects the overall total. I think that would push it above the 2100 number, I think, if I can do math right. So yes.
Outstanding. Thank you for this effort. And to your point, I want to point out to everyone who will be submitting maps going forward that Ward 8's population was top and bottom heavy. When I say top and bottom heavy, the old Ward 8 boundaries from the 2010 census grew at the top of Ward 8 near Anacostia Park and the river, and the bottom of Ward 8 near Southern Avenue going out towards Eastover, if you will. So that did make map making, it was tricky for me. It was harder to do this map. It was harder for me to work on this map than it was to work at the citywide level, just because of how that split happened at the top and the bottom of Ward 8. So great job, Sheila and Maggie. Can we zoom out just to get a broad view of what this looks like?
Yeah, of course. And the way I did it was just making all of the other ANCs a single color, just in terms of, for my, I think, sanity and understanding of trying to play around with the map.
Okay. And it almost looks like you figured out how to get a bit of Arlington County back into the district.
Oh,
so thank you for
interesting.
that.
Oh. There we go. that might just be the water though. So maybe not. We'll take part.
No worries. No worries. No. This is a great effort, and I just want to point out that it looks like what I'm also seeing is that the 8A boundaries in your map are largely staying the same. Is that correct?
So I think more or less, at least my approach was kind of keeping the existing boundaries and kind of just looking within that 8E space, and rather than the larger, ward level, and splitting up into ANCs that way.
All
if
right.
that makes sense.
We have a comment, and I'm looking at the chat. Holly, I do see your hand is up. Actually, yeah, Commissioner Muhammad's hand is up. Is this Commissioner Muhammad? would you mind, Maggie, would you mind
Mhm.
responding to comments as I'm seeing them in both the chat and seeing
Yeah.
Commissioner Muhammad's hand itself?
Yeah, I saw the, actually, let me zoom back in and find the chat message again. The 8E01, 8E02. Let me go into here.
And this is regarding Henson Ridge, which, I mean, I remember when during our first meeting, I think you made a comment, or even prior to that, you made a comment about not wanting to split Henson Ridge. And just saying that to say that all of our committee members have an opportunity to submit an idea, but I would love to hear your thoughts, your local thoughts on Henson Ridge.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got a baby in the background, but yeah, I know. So I guess I'm assuming that in the 2010 redistricting, I honestly don't know what happened before that. Henson Ridge, you know, is our subdivision off of Stanton Road and Alabama Avenue. It's currently divided into 2 single-member districts. And again, we have one homeowners association, one property management company, like everything. And you know, for a while we discussed that in the past. If we, you know, found out that we had 2 different representatives. So that was like one of the goals. I know Stanton Road was probably an easy line to draw, but I've attempted to navigate. I guess it's Esri, but it's kicking my butt right now. But I'm hoping, I've been trying to like redraw it so that the whole subdivision is contained either in 8E01 or 02.
Yeah.
And I recognize that there will be some overages, but I think I can't really see your map to the south.
Oh, yes, to the south. Sorry. Kind of zoom down. I'm trying to also.
Okay, but yeah, we can like talk, you know, after this or another day.
Yeah.
And, you know, this meeting.
Yeah, connecting offline would be super helpful. I value that feedback. So thanks.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Amin. I think Dewan has a question about 8B01, 8B02.
Yeah. I did see that. 8B01.
So Maggie,
Yeah.
And I'm just unclear. So I believe, so you have, I'm using my mouse as if you can see it. But you have all of this as 8B01, and isn't 8B02 Garfield Heights? Or are we further up and it just didn't make it on your map?
Oh, you mean this 8B01 here? Oh, so that, and I think, sorry, let me just figure out how. So the 8B01, that part that kind of cuts into 8E as a larger, like the way that it cuts in. I think to respond to that question, I kind of use the existing 8E lines as a starting place. I don't know if that's, you know, a larger conversation with the 8B group, if this part here, you know, is kind of incorporated into 8E and a new map. But I don't know if that answers your question, Monique, or if it helps at all, or if you have any kind of specific thoughts. I, you know, would appreciate the feedback, either, you know, now or offline.
Yeah, I'll probably reach you offline. I mean, Holly, Commissioner Muhammad brings up a good point that you're only doing a map for 8E. I was just, because I'm 8B and because we are, because Barbara and I have to do this for 8B, I was just trying to see where your thinking was. But I don't need to take up any more time here doing that. I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll send you my contact information separately.
Thanks.
I may have been unclear during the last meeting. I'm glad you brought that up. The request for each of our engagement leads was to at least present an idea relative to the ANCs that you've been engaging on those boundaries. But that's awfully difficult to do without the context of the rest of the ward. So the fact that we have a complete Ward 8 recommendation while focusing on 8E is, you know, it was more than it was asked for, but it's kind of extra credit because you can't use the tool without the context of the other boundaries around it. So if I wasn't clear before, that's the thinking there in each of the engagement lead teams providing a map relative to your feedback. The need was only to speak to your the boundaries for your engagement team lead or engagement lead A and C, but that was within the context or the knowledge that you would have to likely do a map for the entire ward in order for it to make sense relative to the ask.
So that helps a lot. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So that helps a lot, but that makes me then want to speak to your comment about feedback, because 6B was non-committal. They sort of accepted whatever, so they didn't really give any feedback or about where they cared, where the lines were drawn. And Miss Barbara and I were unable to go to 8B based on a miscommunication. So we won't even talk to them until March 15th. So should we just use our best guess about how we feel this should be done, absent any feedback?
I would say so. I think there's still opportunities for the community to engage, but given that the leads have now had, will have had 5 meetings to engage by the time we complete this effort, I don't expect there'll be any significant feedback by the end, by meeting 6 of this committee. If there is, we should definitely voice it because we ultimately need to come up with a final map. So I don't know, like if someone is like, well, 8003, everybody moved out in the last 2 weeks. So we should probably redraw that boundary. I mean, and, you know, I'm just using that as an example. You know, if we get to March 30th and we hear that, it does make us want to take a second look, a second thought. But if there has not been any feedback, then that feedback, you know, as committee members, the committee members were chosen, selected, and everyone had the opportunity to sign up here. So this is with the feedback of all of our Ward 8 residents, but the committee members are all Ward 8 residents, and our membership was solidified in early January for the purpose of leading this effort in producing a map. Does that answer your question?
No, that didn't.
Okay.
Because
Please
what I'm explaining. So Barbara and I, or Ramona and I, will sit down and put maps together.
Okay.
For 8B, we got knocked off of their last meeting. We're not going to see them until March 15th. You want a map from us by March 9th. So Barbara and I are going to just have to, with the knowledge that we've had laid out in these meetings, create a map. Ramona and I went to the 6B meeting to have this discussion, and 6B was just like, yeah, we know what's happening, keep it moving. So creating a map, I guess will just have to be what we think is the best, right? That's all I'm getting clarity on.
That's the case. Yes.
All right.
That's the case. We will see if via the redistricting inbox, our Gmail account, if there's any feedback to provide to you. We'll try to get that done. Given that we're trying to submit maps for viability by the 9th, we'll try to let you all know if there's any additional feedback, say by Monday, close of business Monday. Can we write that down, Carmen? let's set a date of Monday for having any feedback, additional feedback for those of us or the residents who haven't been able to get with the engagement leads, to submit that to the redistricting inbox. And then we can pass that on to the engagement leads so that they can submit a final map, or not a final map, but their draft maps by the middle of next week. I think I heard Holly, but I saw Miss Lockridge's hand up first. Let me ask
She
first.
definitely had her hand up first. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things that was just said.
Okay.
I mean, in terms of additional feedback after the maps, and yes, I would say if you're going to these ANC meetings and they're not allowing you on there, certainly move forward with it. We are under timelines. And the last thing I like to, just for the members, I know you probably know, but those that's in Facebook and that's watching us virtual, this live feedback, is that this is not the last time the council have to vote on these maps. 2 occasions, just like any other legislation. So whatever we present to the council, they will have to then have hearings on it. So people will still have another opportunity outside of this process to vote on these SMD lines. So I just wanted to add that for those who are concerned about getting the input from the ANC commissioners. And yes, Commissioner Muhammad had her hand up. And then there's also a question in the attendees for, I think that's Miss Jackie Carter.
Okay, let me ask the one that did we answer, Miss Lockridge? Thank you. Miss Wason, did we answer your question, or do you have the clarity you need to provide a draft map by next Wednesday?
Yes, you did, and I do. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Ms. Muhammad, Commissioner Muhammad?
Okay, I guess my first, not a question, I just to make a statement that since so many people had a problem using this online tool, as ancient as it may seem, we can still use paper and it can still be shared via the meeting. So in order to try to move forward, I'm suggesting that we do whatever, draw whatever map we need on paper or whatever. It can still be shared on the screen so that we can get this moving. And then my other thing is that the Office of Planning review is not a requirement. So is it necessary for us to pull our map and do that?
So I heard 2 questions or points. One, what the potential of using paper to submit a draft map. The second statement is the Office of Planning a requirement for submitting whatever, or being part of whatever final submission we have as a committee? To the first question, I will say yes. Drawing out the boundaries on paper is fine, but I think the statement earlier was that there aren't any or many cartographers on this committee, so it sounds like that's much more difficult than using the tool. The second statement is, even if that's not the case, in order to present in the format that we're using, it would at least need to be put in the PDF form so that it could be shared as a file and illustration on the screen. The second statement, I'm sorry, I lost my thought there. The second statement is, the Office of Planning has asked us, and this is ultimately to produce a viable product. We run the risk of the Office of Planning having their nuances or their knowledge of what it takes to produce a viable map. And if we don't get our products vetted by them, there's a potential that, even if a non-vetted Office of Planning by the Office of Planning map ends up being what we vote on March 30th and we present that, it could be just that. It could be a dud. It could be a bad product.
That was not a requirement.
it's not, and that's true. For those of you all that can't hear Commissioner Muhammad, she's saying that the Office of Planning vetting our map is not a requirement, and that is true. But we're trying to mitigate the risk that anything not vetted by them is not a viable product.
Well, that's not a step that we were required to take in 2010.
Oh, okay. Ms. Mason, I see that you are either speaking and we can't hear it, or I don't know, your box is green. Did you have something to say?
I don't know why I'm not doing anything.
Okay. Your box is green and Commissioner Muhammad's was not. Anyway, all right. So that was the 8E map discussion. And let's see here.
Before you go on, Mr. Chairman, did you want to get the question out of Miss Jackie Carter?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Carter, I did hear that and I skipped it in my mind. I'm sorry. Ms. Carter, yes, please.
Oh, thank you so much. How's everybody doing?
All right. Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. I just had a couple questions. I asked a couple questions from the students the last time I was here. And yeah, I took the answers back, which led to a deeper, more research on my part. And so I just want to ask a couple questions. The first question is, I found on the council website, an amendment amending the Redistricting Procedure Act of 1981. And it lists by ward the redistricting areas. And there was only one map presented. I think it was 8E. And the map that was presented wasn't consistent with what's in the Amendment Act. In the Amendment Act, if this is the act that everybody's using to draw the boundary lines, it looks like in the Amendment Act, Ward 6 is actually going into Ward 7 and not Ward 8. And then there's, it's on the DC Council website. And then in Ward 8, it just appears, if I'm reading it correctly, that there are lines, districting lines being drawn within the ward as opposed to another ward feeding into the ward. So the first question is, am I looking at a recent document? And the second question is, are my students allowed to attend to ask questions?
Mr. Chairman, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. So the first question is the Redistricting Amendment Act of, I believe you said 1981, still applicable? Is that the first question, Ms. Carter?
Yes, if that is the redistricting guidelines or amendment that's being used to draw these maps. Because I couldn't find anything else that on the DC Council website that spoke to or addressed the areas within each ward where these new boundaries are being drawn.
My, with limited knowledge, response to that is, we are responding to redistricting per a 1976 piece of legislation that, yeah, it may have been amended in 1981, but I'm not sure that anything significant enough changed, if there was an amendment in 1981 that would change anything that we are doing with this committee that otherwise was in effect when redistricting began back in the fall, or when the ANC redistricting began in January. Otherwise, I will say that I want to recommend that you contact Councilwoman Silverman and her staff to get clarification on the answer to that question.
Thank you. May I also send the amendment to this, this group so that you'll also have access? So it's still all, wait a minute, was I muted? Did you hear me?
No, I heard you. You asked
Oh.
if you could send the amendment to the group, and yes, please send me the redistricting Ward 8 Gmail address, which is in this chat. And then the second question is, can students attend? Most certainly.
Okay, I would like to bring 5 of my students who are very interested in this to the next meeting, and hopefully they can ask their questions directly.
We would love
Thank
to
you.
have them.
Thank you.
The next meeting is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, March 16th. Same registration info, by the way.
Okay, and then my final, I think my final question. Oh, so you don't know because you're not familiar with, this group is not familiar with the Redistricting Procedure Act of 1981, so you wouldn't know if, for example, the map that was presented by, I think, 8E is not in sync with the Act of 1981, because the Act of 1981 puts Ward 6 in into Ward 7 and not Ward 8. So you guys don't have any idea about that. So I just have to wait. And so what do I contact Silverman's office about? What do I say?
I got a question real quick. This is Councilman White. This amendment you're talking about, how do you see this amendment affecting what we're looking at today?
Well, it looks like Ward 6 is being redistricted into Ward 8. And
yeah, but we redistricted. We did a redistricting in 2010.
Okay, this is an amendment. So there was amendment in 1976, I think, and then there was another amendment in 1981. And so which would make the 1981 one more recent.
So we did redistricting in 2010, which is also an amendment. So this amendment, you can't, so on the council, you can't pass a bill unless it's legally and technically sufficient. So what happens is in order to make an amendment, it has to like they go through the law and they look through to see what conflicts may be based on other amendments. What I'm saying is there was an amendment after that amendment, which was in 2010.
Okay, so that's not up on the website because the one that's on the website is 1981. So if I could know how to get to the 2010 one, I could share that.
Yeah, Miss Carter.
Hi.
Yeah, hi, David Meadows. I think that I put what Sam, who is the Chief of Staff for Councilmember Silverman, sent me because I had questions on the population numbers. I think what you're discussing is what the council passed in 1981 following the 1980 census. At that time, Ward 6 did go into Anacostia. It went up Morris Road. It was where Thelma Jones Street is now. That was Ward 6 at one time. But the link I put into the chat, I didn't check to make sure it links through, but that's what I was sent. It was the final number for the entire city that the Committee on Redistricting and the council just passed. So I hope that can explain it. It's a lot of words, obviously, and I'm not sure if there's a map attached to that link that he shared with me. But that's from Councilmember Silverman's office, what I shared in the chat.
I don't see it in the chat, but I was really interested in finding the one that Councilmember White was just talking about from 2010. Any idea where I
Can
can
you
get
reach
that?
out to me tomorrow? I put my link in. This is Wanda speaking, and then we can want to move the meeting on. It's a little after 7, and we can try to get that information for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you'd be looking for the 2020, you know, not the 2010. That one's old.
Correct. And that is on Councilmember Silverman's website, but in the essence of time, I want to turn it back over to the chairman so we can get the other two maps shown if possible. Not trying to take over your meeting, sir.
No, thank you all. We are a committee and we're gonna get it done together. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Can we move on to the engagement leads for ANC? Who's next on the list? 6D, Mr. Meadows and Mr. Presswood. Do you have a map that you can share with us on your ideas from your engagement of ANC 6D?
Well, we have two maps, and Troy will share his. I had an issue with mine because on the January 19th, we were advised that the Navy Yard, the Ward 6 portion of the new Ward 8 was 7,700 people. The Esri system has it at 6,700 people. So it's basically 1,000 people different from what I was under the impression of. So it will look like the Navy Yard without the notch will be 3 SMDs instead of 4. Troy has created a map that incorporates that, and I'll let him speak on that. But before you do, Troy, did you have any update you wanted to talk about the notch? Or you want to wait until afterwards?
You brought Commissioner Chairman. Yeah, I know you mentioned earlier that you have an update, so it'd be great to hear that before we give our presentation.
Okay, sure. I just spoke with Ivan Fishberg. Today is Wednesday, so that was Monday morning, and he did confirm that our council member and Councilmember Allen spoke and have at least gotten to the point of a gentleman's agreement that we're going to formalize via, I guess, maybe a memo of some sort that's still being worked out, that we will have a notch inclusive Ward 6, Ward 8, Navy Yard, ANC, or the notch is to be included in whatever Ward 8 ANC we decide upon. So that's been agreed to. And since we have the council member on, if you don't mind speaking to that point of what you and Councilmember Allen spoke about, and we will move on from there. Councilmember White, please.
Yes, sorry. So absolutely. Hold on one second. So yes, we did have a brief conversation about the expectations of what we wanted to see happen. We both agreed that we would do a joint letter to agree upon sharing the land on a notch between both wards, A and C's. And so I guess, his end, he's been talking to his staff, I've been talking to my staff, and so it's just a quick conversation about it.
All right. So that being said, we should be drawing our Navy Yard area ANC, inclusive ANC, and SMDs, acknowledging the fact that, and if anyone can confirm the number off the top of their heads, I think there's about 7,000 people in that notch that will then be included in whatever Ward 8 ANC we come up with moving forward. So that would basically just add additional SMDs to whatever Navy Yard inclusive Ward 8 at ANC we design.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the notch will have 2 SMDs. I'm not sure the population of the notch.
Okay, sure, right. Just saying that to say that at around 2,000 people per SMD, and remembering Gottlieb saying that we can have 9 or 11 SMDs in an ANC, we can have as few as 1 or 2. Although that
is it because if we have 6,700 total Ward 6 residents. So that would be, well, I guess Troy and I can talk about this differently too, but are we allowed to combine if it's a 6E 8F notch, I'm not sure what the name would be, but you follow me, right? So if it's that, are we allowed to, and we're not allowed to cross the ward line now and encroach and create like because right now we're looking at 2 in the notch and 3 in the Navy Yard, so that's 5. We can't create 6 where some are halfway, and I guess Scotland would know the precedence of that.
If there are Ward 6 residents following the redistricting, citywide redistricting effort that are not in the notch, they will not be in a Ward 8 ANC.
Correct. They'll be in a Ward 6 ANC.
Yes.
But I have to, I'm trying to figure, because the 2 in the notch, it's really like, it's going to be about 2,600 and 2,500.
Okay.
I mean, that's how much over it is. So really they're over like 1,000 people. So I'm saying if we took, and then when we do 3 in the Navy Yard area, it's going to be like over by like 700 people. So that's like a kind of an extra SMD, if that makes sense to you. So I'm saying, are we allowed to create an SMD that goes across the border? So that's from between 6 and 8, you know.
I don't think you could, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I don't think you can create a new SM. You cannot create a cross SMD. You can create a cross commission though. I think that's what it is. Yeah. So the SMDs have to be, they have to be based on the ward population.
But I'm pretty sure it did happen once where Lee Brian Reba represented not only Ward 1 residents, but he represented Ward 3 residents. So that I need to look into.
I know Gottlieb would know.
I know he will, definitely. We'll reach out to him. I did call him, but he hasn't called me back.
Mr. Chairman, we did receive an email from the Office of Planning today. You might not have had a chance to see it. It came in rather late. For both, you have to have special permission to do the cross area anyway. And so that's going to be a part of the letter that comes from Councilmember Allen and Councilmember White.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Lockridge. Does that help, David?
It does. It does. It's the numbers. I mean, as you know, as I discussed earlier, on January 19th, Wanda gave us the numbers of how many were from the 6B04, 6D02, 06, and 07. And that came to 7,700. But when you go into the system, it's 6,700. So I still think what Wanda said was correct, but the Office of Planning and Alyssa Silverman's office says the numbers in the system are correct.
Wanda, can I have shareability, please?
Yeah, I have given it to David. I thought he was going first. So
No, he's got it. He's got it. Thank you, though.
Give me a second. I'm changing it over to you now.
And David, I don't have your map. You have a map, or you're pausing your map for now?
I have a map, but it's got 4 districts and none of them, only one of them hits 2,000 and the other are, they are 1,400 and 1,700, and that's where I'm at, 1,600.
Got it. So I should preface my map by saying that I am slightly out of range for all of them, but this is the first crack at it. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, we only focused on the notch, which is, I mean, not the notch, but our appendage over west of the river, because that's what you told us at first, even though I know you're saying we could do the whole ward. And I certainly have to agree that it probably makes sense that we're all working from one map at some point. That we're all at least looking at the same numbers and working with the same boundaries. And I have to also just say I agree with Commissioner Mohammed that if if it's too hard to do it on the map tool, Esri, and by the way, it's hard as hell, then the old fashioned way still works. And matter of fact, Gottlieb sent me this map here. I'm showing everyone because we were all thinking about this joint 6D and Ward 8 commission. And so these numbers are basically census numbers for each of those census tracts. And so early on, I was just adding up numbers here. I mean, it's keeping it real with everybody. Because it's easier to do sometimes than to sit here and try to draw a polygram around something that doesn't really want to be drawn around. So, and then it keeps moving and shifting. So at some point I was actually using this by just counting numbers as you see right there. I suspect these are the actual numbers from the census. Hopefully they are. Well, they are the numbers from the census, but I don't know how this comports with what's happening in the Esri tool. So there's that. Anyway, with that being said, though, I counted in the notch, David, 4,200 in terms of just counting these numbers right here. And so that's easily 2 SMDs. And then the rest of it, I came up with this. So again, my map is out of proportion. It's out of, is it showing the right map? Oh, okay. All right, so it's, for some reason, I couldn't relabel these in terms of their alphabets or the numbers. So I can't, everything 8801 was the whole ward in my tool. I couldn't, it was so weird. So I just said, let me start with 8802. And again, these numbers, the labels can easily shift to whatever we want them to be. But the way I did the calculations was, it is slightly outside of the, well, maybe one of them is close, but the other 2 are outside of that number. And the way so if we want to go outside the number, obviously we have to make, the point and for why we're doing that. Clearly there may need to be some census splitting here, but I didn't do that with this tool. And so the way this works is I have 88, which is on this screen here, we're calling this 8803. We're not saying that's going to ultimately be what it is, but on the screen that you see, that's what we're calling it. So 8803 comes in, what I was able to notch out there at 2175, and then below it, which is where the stadium is, stretching all the way over to the Department of Transportation, and all of those, I think the Sandlot, those apartments across the street from Nats Park. And I think there's also a hotel / apartment building, a condo building, something like that, that's in there as well. That came out to 2102. And then the Capitol, what are those called? Capitol Quarter homes. Yeah, so those homes there, that's on the other side of the north side of the Harris Teeter there. I'm calling that 8804. And again, that's out of whack. It's 2295, but again, we can always move the numbers around a little bit. And then the way I look is, so in order to get 4, I was trying to bring 4 into this new commission that we're going to carve out. And obviously this part here, you all can see my mouse. This part here is the notch that David was just talking about, and that has at least 2 SMDs in there. So you add those 2 to this 4, you get 6. The Navy Yard part here, which there are 141 people living on the Navy Yard, according to my calculations, I added that across the bridge to Sheridan, not Sheridan, what is this? Shannon Place and Anacostia Park, Talbert, Shannon, this whole area there, where the Reunion Square side of it is, all the way through parts of Fairlawn down to Nichols Avenue, Nichols Street, and Nicholson Street, I think it is. And so that is another, and I'm calling it 805 on this map, and that comes in at the number it should be. And that commission, that SMD would then serve on this larger commission that will include the other side of the bridge. And so, and the way I was thinking here is at least we get, we're Ward 8, and so at least it's great to have someone from the legacy part of Ward 8 on the other side of the river as well, to sort of make sure we're working together and thinking about the whole ward and not just they're off to themselves and not have to think about the rest of the ward. So that's the map I came up with. I think David has a slightly different map. And so what we're going to do is we're sharing it. We want feedback, comments, and then we'll reconcile them and get something over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Troy. So this is my thought. This is reflective of information that you didn't have, and I think it's genius. When we first started this effort, the thought was from a few folks offline was not to separate the new residents of Ward 8 from the traditional residents of Ward 8. And the best way to do that would be to have a cross river ANC. This does that. Also, the thought is that there are riverfront development issues, particularly as development comes to Ward 8 along that riverfront and probably moves up towards the RFK area, that could be addressed over the next 10 years by an ANC that covers that area. And I think this does this beautifully. And not to say that there aren't many more opportunities to address those points, but this is, out of the ones that I've seen on the tool, the draft maps, this is the best one that I've seen for addressing those issues. So I'll say thank you. And I will ask the community or the committee members and then additional residents for any comments, questions you may have on this thinking or this particular illustration of, I guess, the 8F, potential 8F ANC. And also, that also withstands the fact that there will be 2 additional S&Ds in that notch that we've all come to know, that where the cursor is.
And also the good thing about Mr. Presswood's map here is that the 8A01, which is the Navy, the Nationals ballpark, it doesn't, 8A04 also has the waterfront where the walkway is, and so that it doesn't take all, and where the Harris Teeter is 8A04, and so that it separates all the businesses because you don't want one commissioner handling all the businesses on the water, and so this splits that, so that's also a good thing too.
Yeah, and I should just say we did hear that feedback from I think from members of Ward 6, as well as other community members as well. So no, that's a good point. Okay, I can stop.
All right.
Camila had her hand up. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Just one more thing I noticed in this map, Troy, is that this, knowing how much development is coming to downtown Anacostia, this still leaves a good number of it in what is currently 8A. It's just that one side of, say, MLK, or one side of, I guess that's all that really matters, or that it's really changing there. One side of MLK will be 8F, the other one will be 8A. So no, this definitely maintains the same continuity and character of issues as I've come to know them as a commissioner in 8A, by balancing also the needs of this riverfront area with the new Navy Yard potential ANC. So thank you. And I heard you say there's a hand up.
I saw a hand up, but could I also just ask, as a matter of clarity, are we married to the idea that the current alphabet naming system that's in place now for the legacy ward is what we want to remain in place? or are we open to the idea that we will reshuffle the alphabets? I want to say I heard Commissioner Mohammed maybe last time mention that, 10 years ago, we basically just redrew everything. And I can certainly attest to that because my community changed in terms of my representative. So I guess I don't know if we have an answer for that now, but I just wanted to just throw that out there, posit that with you, Mr. Chairman, in terms of if we are wedded to this idea that where we currently are, the new area out notwithstanding, where we currently are, we are wedded to these alphabets. I am not super familiar with these alphabets in terms of if they've always been where they are, or are we open to the idea of shifting those alphabets around? So it doesn't need an answer per se, but I just want to just throw it out there.
Thank you. And I'll speak for the committee in that we as the committee are making this decision. So we're open to new ideas and ways of thinking about what our final product will be. That being said, I see Commissioner White's hand up.
Thank you, Commissioner Presswood, for taking the time to do that map. I absolutely love the idea of having some type of joint ANC with Legacy Ward 8, if that's what we're calling it, and the new Ward 8 neighbors. However, I would caution having just one legacy commissioner on a full ANC for different types of equity issues, which I'm happy to go into. But just for that map, I would not want to have almost all of that side of MLK with the newer addition, because majority of the development that is coming to Anacostia that we're looking at right now in Anacostia is on that side of MLK, including the Bridge District, which I can't see if the Bridge District was included in your map, but I think it is included in the map that you created. Yeah. If that's the case, then we pretty much, that's so much of our development that will be all in a new kind of ANC, but it's impacted like our immediate community, and this community really wouldn't have very much decision making over that, because it will only have one commissioner making decisions for pretty much the entire development that's coming to MLK, because most of right now the big development is going to be on that side. So I would not favor that. I would want us to think about how we could do that a little bit more equitably, because that's like, it's taking all over Union Square, the Bridge District, all of that side of MLK that's being developed. And that's going to be developed over the next couple of years. So I think we'd be getting the short end of the stick, not being able to have a say in that, and it's being developed. It's being decided by, pretty much commissioners who are on the other side, and you only have one voice who lives on this side who's trying to fight for that. So I think it needs to be equity in terms of trying to have a commission, a complete ANC that is split, so that pretty much all of the decisions won't be happening, because that's the CBAs, that's everything that's being developed. And just wanted to put that out there. But I do really like the idea. And then I would like to say, I am a little wedded to 8A, because A, I'm like, hey, Anacostia, and we've kind of branded that. Not we, our commission, I would say you, Troy, and the work that you've done, really to elevate the network and the brand of 8A, along with Charles Wilson and other commissioners, former commissioners we had who've done a really good job. So I do think we should think about that branding before we just say we're going to chop up all the numbers too.
Jamila, I hear you on that. I would, if you have any time to take a look at this, and I can mail this to you or however we do it. If you have any an opportunity to play around with it, like maybe we stretch something else over or pull that into a different part, just let me know. I'm happy to make those changes. I think my main goal was to try to get as close as I can to balancing this out, even though it's hard to do.
You did a really great job. I don't know, Brian, are we still trying to have an in-person meeting? Because I know these maps are great, but the old-fashioned way works too. And it may just be easier. I know for me, it's easier to look at physical big map printed out on a table and kind of figure things out. But I think that it probably warrants that in-person meeting that you've been trying to call for.
Given the recent mask mandate rollback, I would say it's back on the table. I just don't know if it's feasible to pull one together by March 16th, which leaves our last meeting. So, gosh, like it's not a, it's definitely feasible given that it's publicly healthy to convene, because I can also imagine a table where for us to really have input, we're all going to have to, the 27, 8 of us are all going to have to be right around in the same area around a table trying to point something out. I don't know, the logistics are different than any meeting that I've held in the last 2 years. So that's my hesitancy at this point, but it's definitely back on the table now where we are from a public health standpoint.
Mr. Chairman, you have a question from an attendee, Derek Davis.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, now I see that there are several chats. Can you read the question? I don't see it.
It's not a question. He has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. I can't see that either. Mr. Davis, please speak. Oh, there he is. Yep. Sorry. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I said I hit that accidentally. I want to stand back at this time and just listen. Thank you.
All right. No worries. No worries. Any additional comment on the proposed ANC 6D redistricting map? Six Delta. All right. Well, thank you. And we have one more.
You have another question and as an attendee.
Okay, where's that one?
Andrew Bossy, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly.
All right, Andrew, please go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you. Actually, it may have just been answered. And sorry, I spent several chats mistyping on my end. With that SMD spanning across the river, what is the population in the Navy Yard base versus the residents on the east side? And is there any outsized weight given to that kind of myopic Navy base entity? Again, it may have just been answered. I saw something pop up in chat.
Yeah, I put the answer in the chat, but since you asked the question publicly. So the Navy Yard, according to my calculations that I have here, counting census blocks, has 141 residents. And so the vast majority, and so basically the other 1,900 or so would be located south of on the south side of the ward or east of the river.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
But Commissioner White, I'm sorry, Chairman, Commissioner White was saying that maybe because Anacostia, because there's so much development coming, that maybe there's there's some type of an interest there in terms of just combining all of that together. Since a lot of the new development coming there is going to really greatly impact everyone east of the river or on the south side of the ward. So again, please, this is why we talk about this. If you have ideas about how we can still maybe have a commission or SMD that spans the river, but maybe cut back a little bit on the downtown Anacostia area, we need to hear that feedback so we can get this wrapped up. That's for everybody, sorry. All right, Mr. Chairman, I have to actually leave. So if there's anything you need from me, please send me an email or a text or a message in the bottom.
Thank you. Can you please forward that map to the redistricting address?
Will do.
All right, thank you. I see in the chat, there's still Commissioner Muhammad and as well as Commissioner White mentioned the point of equitability. So this goes back to, I think, an issue we addressed earlier in the meeting, that our goal here is to draw the boundaries of ANCs, not necessarily to shape public policy, because in terms of preserving minority voting populations, et cetera, that's what the ward boundaries have already been drawn to do. So does anyone have any thoughts on what equitable means in the context of our Ward 8 redistricting effort that we may be running afoul of? And this is not from any particular map or boundary standpoint, but what are the equitability issues that we should be mindful of as we move forward with our mapping? If anyone wants to speak with that, please. All right. Maybe that issue is passé for the evening, and I'm fine with that. If we could move on to our last map.
Commissioner Thompson?
Oh, hello? Yeah.
Chair Thompson? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my computer's a little old and raggedy. I just wanted to kind of go back to the earlier question. Are we going to try to at least attempt to plan an in-person meeting before the 16th, and whoever can show up shows up? And I understand that that's not ideal. We're in a pandemic, blah, blah, but wanted to see if we will wrap up that decision tonight. And I think, just to be honest, from my concern is too, like, equitable in terms of making sure that you don't have like just one commissioner from the new Ward 8 on an entire legacy Ward 8 commission, because their voice could be drowned out and they don't have enough representation, and the same for vice versa. So making sure that we're trying to put as much of an equal or equitable representation on the ANC, especially with the legacy sides that are coming, because we know that I would say from my personal experience, my neighbors who have more time, who have more just kind of resources, can be much more active in the ANC. But however, sometimes the neighbors who have less of those resources need you just as much, but you have to go to them because they don't have the access to get to you as easier. And so I'm thinking about it in terms of equity, in terms of numbers of commissioners on a commission, in terms of where they're representing, so that their voices can be heard, that there can be some type of, when you're going to vote and all those other decisions, that you just have that support. And also making sure that we still have enough racial people, Black people on our SMDs too. So that's what I was specifically talking about myself.
Okay, so the first question is, can we commit to an in-person meeting? Given just the logistics, we can't commit to that, because I'm not even at this moment aware of the logistics of setting up a meeting, setting up that kind of meeting. The last time I attended an ANC related in-person meeting, that was at DCHD at Good Hope and MLK. Don't know if that's an option. So like I said, it's on the table. We can't commit to it tonight because we don't know about the logistics. And I will take your second question more as a comment and a fair point, which answers my question of what are the issues we need to think about relative to drawing our SMD ANC boundaries. That stated, anything additional, Commissioner White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I will get with Ms. Lockridge, and as we are able to communicate with the committee members, I will get with Ms. Lockridge to see what those logistical issues are like. But obviously that won't happen before the end of this meeting. Moving on to our final map of the evening and having interwoven discussion into our conversation, is there an ANC 6B map, Ms. Barber, Ms. Mason, that we can share? I think the answer is no based on prior feedback, but let me just ask. Okay, I am not hearing that we have a 6B map per se to discuss based on the community engagement of ANC 6B. And I think that was because we weren't able to attend or interact with those with that ANC. So that being the case, I'll reiterate that the goal here is to forward as much information that we can visually present to the Office of Planning by midweek next week, March 9th. And you can forward those proposed maps, the PDFs, to the redistricting email address. Ms. McCall, can you just remind everyone of what that address is, the redistricting email address? And also put it back in the chat. There's been a lot of comments, so it might have got drowned out given the last time you put it in the chat.
Okay. Okay. That email address is redistrict ward 8 at anc@gmail.com. And I will put it back in the chat.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. So
there is one question that was in the question and answer that we did not get to. My apologies. And that is any section on the map specifically focused on public housing, co-ops, and economic advancement for the community or private housing if preferred.
Chloe. All right. This is the comment from John McNeil.
Yes, it's in the Q&A as well.
So zoning, I don't think is necessarily defined by any of our maps as provided by the Office of Planning. Given that we're doing a census redistricting, we're talking about human beings, the population of human beings in a particular area, economics, BZA, I mean, density is sort of represented, such that we need we'll have two additional SMDs with the Navy Yard notch, but I don't think those issues are within the scope of our effort here. So, and to my knowledge, that they haven't been represented in any of the maps that we have as a starting point or a reference point explicitly. And you know, we recognize the need to be circumspect about those issues, but our response here is primarily, and I'd venture to say solely, to the census. And I say solely to the census because all of the other issues that are somewhat germane here have been addressed at the citywide redistricting level via the council vote back in December. So now we're just trying to draw lines within Ward 8 that abide by the plus or minus 5% of 2,000 residents per SMD. And we've agreed to add a Navy Yard notch to a Ward 8 ANC, including the other Ward 8 SMDs west of the river, give or take which side of the river or how large an ANC might be. And yeah, I think that answers that question. And Ms. McCall did put the redistricting email address back in the chat. So if anyone has any comments, any maps to submit prior to next Wednesday so that we can get them over to Office of Planning, the goal then being to have a response back from the Office of Planning by March 16th, by our March 16th meeting on whether they are viable maps. And while Commissioner Mohammed did point out that that is not a requirement, it is a risk mitigation measure that we are taking to ultimately be successful. We have come to just about the end of our agenda, and we have had discussion throughout the evening. So then I'll just say, is there any additional discussion on any of the topics that we've had, any of the maps that we've seen, any burning issues that we should discuss as a committee prior to our adjournment? And please feel free to raise your hand or post in the chat. Commissioner Adolfo.
Yes, I just wanted to echo what Commissioner White said. I think it would be great if we could get together. I'd be willing to help try to facilitate finding a space. I think it is important for us to try to move with some energy to get some more feedback on it, especially for those who aren't able to navigate that tool. So I know you said we can't commit to that tonight, so offline, let me know what I can do to help facilitate that process.
How about this? I think we all have the ANC, the committee email addresses.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind taking the lead on sending out a blast to all of the committee members, asking for their input and suggestions on how we can pull that together by March 16th?
Roger that, sir. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. I have the Redistrict Board 8 ANC at Gmail address. That's the only one that I have. So if I
Perhaps since I have the list, maybe I can send that out and ask what the members are. And we can also get a location if that's what the majority of the members would like to do.
Yes, please. Wanda, if you could make that happen, perhaps maybe you and Commissioner Adolfo can coordinate. Yes, because I think addressing the committee members first to make sure that most of us are on board and can attend and make it a fruitful meeting, given it'll be our second to last meeting. Sure. And yeah, then we'll just pull together those logistics, and we will. And this is just my thinking it through in real time as to how it would go. We would pull together a flyer and get that out, say by next Friday. Ms. McCall, can you note that as a due date, as a deadline for your notes that we send out? If we're going to have an in-person meeting, we'd be able to send out an invite on time and location and I guess any other pertinent information by next Friday, the 11th, COB.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I just read the last comment in the chat.
That's the menu you will have.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Any additional comments, questions, thoughts on our meeting this evening and the outtakes? As a matter of fact, Ms. McCall, can you, if you have a moment, if you can, if it's not a heavy lift, can you restate what our due dates deliverables are for the next 2 weeks between now and our March 16th meeting?
Okay, you want that now, or you want me to send that out?
If you can state it easily now, just so that we wrap up this meeting with the pertinent points in mind, it'd be helpful.
I'm not even sure, Mr. Thompson, that I'm understanding what you're asking, what your ask is.
Okay, how about this? I'll do it, and if I miss anything, everyone, please feel free to add. We agreed just now that we will work to ascertain the viability of holding a March 16th in-person redistricting committee meeting. And I think someone needs to mute, please.
I thought you said the 11th.
Mute everybody.
Okay. So by the 11th, we want to send that information out, which means that Commissioner Adolfo and Ms. Lockridge are going to coordinate the committee members and I guess the logistics of making that happen. We will send that information out by Friday, March 11th and this is for the March 16th meeting, and it will be at 6 p.m. So if we can make that happen. In addition, by next Wednesday, March 9th, via the redistricting email address, we should have all the draft submissions that we are going to attempt to have vetted by the Office of Planning. This is withstanding Commissioner Muhammad's point that this is not a requirement, but a definite risk mitigation measure for ultimately producing a viable product by April 1st. And those are the two deliverables that stick out of my mind and based on my notes. Can anyone else?
Just one last thing on in terms of what my takeaway is for my to-do prior to sending out the information on next Friday. Please, members that's on the line, look for a maybe like a Google Doc or something to say yes or no, whether you are comfortable with a in-person meeting or not, and we'll go with the majority. I will inform you, Mr. President, I will open it up for 24 hours. So I will open it up probably no later than 9 a.m. tomorrow. So tomorrow's Thursday, so 9 a.m. Friday morning, we would know if members would like to meet in person or if they would continue to like to meet virtual. And if that is the case, I'll be certain to have all the information out by next Friday in terms of location and time.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lockridge. All right. That being said, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I feel like this was a fruitful meeting. We are 2 minutes over our anticipated meeting time, but I think we've done a good job. So we will know a lot between now and next Friday, March 11th, about how our next meeting will proceed. And keep your eyes on your email for that poll coming from Ms. Lockridge. And we will keep you all informed on the next meeting. And also, I'll just say that even if we do meet in person, we'll do our best to have some sort of recording or electronic recording measure so that we can broadcast this live on Facebook as well. All right. I'm just gonna take it upon myself to motion adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And we will talk to you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe. Have a good evening.
All right.